I want to talk about politics and voting and how important our energy is on what we promote. So, right now, I don't pay attention to politics and I've never been into voting. And it wasn't until I became more aware as to why I was always like this, because it never felt right to me. So, when life gives you options in the political system, if you only agree partially with what you're voting yes to, but you don't agree with all of it, you shouldn't vote at all. Because what happens is when enough people say no to what's being presented to them, life has to adjust to a higher form of what's going to be presented. So reality is shaped by the consciousness and beliefs that people feed in their mind. The higher someone is in their awareness by doing the inner work, the more power they technically have in the game and how it adapts, because light contains more power than darkness. It's perfectly set up this way. But with more light becomes more responsibility. So you have more responsibility and ownership in the game because you're more conscious. Other people are unconscious, and so they're still somewhat innocent because they have not been shown the weight of their actions as someone who has awakened to a higher level of awareness. So when you awaken to a higher level of awareness and how life is constructed based off your mind and what you feed, you're going to be tested on, do you fully believe what you've been shown? This applies to what you buy, if you feed the stock market and your investments, right? What you vote for, right? Do you vote at all? Because when you understand that reality has to adapt over time to match what you're trying to build, then you won't settle for scraps. You're not going to settle for lower forms of operating, right? Like, I've been shown fruit is the path, fruit and breath, and I've been reforming my ego to fully believe this and let it go, which I'm getting. I mean, it's working, which is great. And I had someone, ask me, well, you'll never go to a restaurant again? And the answer is, well, no, I would like not to, because in the reality that I'm building in my mind of what is possible is really understanding that we can live in a world where we plant fruit trees and people can just pick fruit off the tree, and we're not, so obsessed and attached to food. And although reality is not fully showing me that yet, I have this belief inside of myself that it's possible. It's the same with the way reality is shaping, and people are getting more involved in movement and in breath and forms of exercise, and we're starting to shift as a community. We have to hold the line in our belief system and trust that reality will eventually catch up. And that's, I think, part of the hardest part has been for me in the journey, is having faith in that integration phase. But as I do more inner work, I have days where I'm so connected to God and God's power that doubting God's ability to reform mankind is laughable, so laughable. And I had this level of awareness hit me yesterday that any doubt I allow to creep into my mind of God's power, God's abundance, God's ability to provide for me is essentially kind of a form of evil, because it's a form of ignorance and belief system that is not real. And, I truly believe that everyone kind of picks their versions of hell in order to adapt and outgrow that belief system. So what I've been shown is there's been souls of very high level of awareness that have implanted themselves in different countries, different religions, different forms of belief, different gender roles, things like that, in order to awaken in those environments and shift those environments to a higher state, almost like an anchor. So they anchor a higher form of consciousness. And if you think of everything in life as a big nervous system that interacts together, it creates nodes in the operating system to advance the consciousness up within those nervous systems that have been implanted in those environments. So if you're looking at life and you're constantly, just getting wrapped up emotionally in all of the negativity, you're really grasped into the game and you're not looking at the bigger picture. And so what it's good to do is, instead of getting wrapped up into the acting phase and stop being an actor, become a director. So start looking at life as a movie scene, and you're the director. And you're playing a game with yourself, and there's puzzle pieces everywhere. What are you trying to tell yourself, right? Because I believe all of us, especially those from, a higher realm, we all express God differently. We all have gifts. And part of the journey in the game is to unlock the awareness of those gifts. So I'm starting to realize for myself personally that I have the gift of analyzing collective emotions, analyzing how they apply to the game, and then sharing them collectively with others so people can apply verbal communication to their thoughts and feelings in order to analyze reality from a different state. I've also been shown that I have this gift to spot people who hold architectural blueprints inside of them. And by just recognizing that inside of someone, I activate them. And so that's part of my gift. And I've also been shown that by raising my awareness and frequency, I'm attached to these architects across the globe. And I'm basically activating them energetically. Like we're activating each other, and it's like supposed to create a parallel movement. Other people I've been shown have different gifts and they're in positions of power in the world, and they basically have created companies, or they're in politics, but they've been operating from their ego. And so part of what they're supposed to remember is their higher realm of consciousness by integrating their emotions. So then in their position of power, they'll be able to essentially build companies. And if most of these people are men, they'll be able to adjust their way of leading by having integrated their feminine aspect within themselves versus repressing that. And then this also, part of the movement with like male and female is the feminine has to grasp within herself that her intuition is her connection to God. And when she does the inner work to align with the divine and not be manipulative with her powers of manipulating man sexually in whatever form, and that she aligns with God's will, she'll naturally activate the male's divine feminine within himself and will allow him to align with God. So if you're a female and you put down men a lot, or if you blame the patriarchy, you're not realizing that you're part of the problem, because gender is actually irrelevant, and we all have masculine and feminine inside of us. And if we only view reality from a wounded masculine standpoint, it means we're in our wounded feminine, right? When we align with God and we heal the wounded feminine and masculine inside of ourselves, we will understand our worth and our value, and we'll set a new bar for men as well as females on what the standard is to operate as a divine being. And it's really important that we do the inner work and heal that aspect of ourselves, because it's the best way that we can start to reform the world and show people that there's a higher path and it's possible.